And welcome back to another wonderful edition of the NFLandUPodcast. I'm your host, as always, Hayden Vassar, here on October 18th, Friday. Pretty early Friday morning, actually. It's a bit after 10 a.m. Eastern. Probably the earliest we've ever recorded. Yeah, we're gonna talk about a lot of stuff today. A very jam-packed show. I thought it was gonna be pretty light today, but a lot of news happened either during the recording or after the recording Tuesday, so we got a lot of news. We got a game to recap last night, and we got previews to get to, and a lot came out of the game last night. So why don't we just go ahead and jump into last night's Thursday night football game, because I know that's the hot topic in the NFL right now is what happened last night. So last night, Kansas City Chiefs at Denver Broncos, a AFC West divisional rivalry game. Kansas City wins a thoroughly dominating game, 30-6. Kansas City snaps a 2-game losing streak, improves to 5-2 on the season. Denver snaps a 2-game winning streak and falls to 2-5 and feels like they're relegated back to the basement of the AFC West after having two really impressive weeks defensively. Just get dominated on the offensive side of the ball by Kansas City. So here's the deal. Kansas City had 9 sacks in this game. 9. They sacked Joe Flacco, the Denver quarterback, 8 times, which is a career high for him. And they blew up a fake punt, so they technically sacked the punter. I don't get how that works, but it goes as a sack, so they got 9 sacks in this game. Coming into this game, the Kansas City defense had 11 sacks all season. So think about that. In one game, they nearly had their entire season total of sacks in one game. They forced 3 fumbles in this game, recovered one of them, and ran it all the way back for a touchdown in the second quarter. They allowed 205 total yards. 71 of those were rushing yards. That's a season low for the Kansas City Chiefs defense, and a thoroughly dominating effort. I mean, this was probably the best defensive effort we've seen out of the Chiefs all season long. In brutal honesty, I mean, especially the last 3 weeks. Watching that game, I honestly think that the Chiefs defense got tired of hearing people talk about, how bad their defense is. Because it's been a talking point for like 3 straight weeks. They got so tired of it, they went out and beat up on a bad team. I mean, that Denver offensive line was not getting a single thing done last night. Joe Flacco was under constant pressure, and when he was able to, have a second or two to throw the ball downfield, it would almost always get dropped is what it felt like, especially by Noah Fant, who's had a couple big drops dating all the way back to the preseason, it feels like. So it's either he's getting hit or sacked, Flacco. Their offensive line isn't blocking and messing things up. Their wide receivers and tight ends are dropping things, and the running game has nothing. And as the Denver defense, who had played really well these last couple weeks, I mean, they had like 12 sacks the last 3 games, and were holding people to low yardage totals, and they were going up in every statistical category on defense. And you thought because they're playing against a banged up offensive line and just a banged up team overall in Kansas City, you would think that it would give the Denver defense a chance to tee off in their home stadium in Denver. It wasn't even the case. I think they had like 1 sack the entire night. That's wow. I guess we're going back to Denver defense being bad. I know it's Thursday night football and not everybody always shows up for Thursday night football, but still, I was not expecting just this thorough domination by Kansas City. I was not expecting that at all. I mean, it's one thing to put up points by Kansas City because that's how we expect them to win. It's another thing for them to come out and just German suplex another team into submission, because that's what that was. Because Denver had the opening drive, because they got the ball to start the game. They had an opening drive that went like 5 minutes, over 70 yards and a touchdown. Then they went for 2 and didn't get it. And then after that, their offense just stalled the entire night. They had the lone opening drive to start the game, and you're thinking, okay, Denver's obviously done their scouting homework. They know how to beat this Kansas City defense, and then after that, it was over. It was just all Kansas City after that. But the most important thing about this game isn't, who won or who lost. It's about who got hurt. Because early second quarter, Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes, they were down in the red zone, the Denver red zone, and Kansas City calls a quarterback sneak on a short yardage situation. They go for it, they get it, but Patrick Mahomes gets hurt in the little pile up, trying to tackle him. And he has apparently dislocated his kneecap. Now, that sounds excruciatingly painful, and if you were watching the game last night, there was a moment where it looked insanely like they popped his kneecap back into place on the field, and the cameras caught it, and it almost made me throw up. So he leaves early second quarter, and in comes Matt Moore, the former Miami Dolphins backup quarterback, who had moved on with his football life this past offseason. He wasn't even, trying to be on a team. He had a job. He was a member of the Miami Dolphins scouting team. He had moved on, and then Kansas City randomly called him up and said, "Hey, you want to come play quarterback?" And now he's in Kansas City, and now he's got a starting job. And we'll talk more about Mahomes getting hurt a bit later when we get to news, because right now we just want to stick to the game. But when Mahomes got hurt, it felt like the entire football world stopped. You could just feel how it just didn't feel right. The entire stadium in Denver was quiet. The entire Denver sideline was just motionless, including the Chiefs sideline as well. Because they all know how important Patrick Mahomes is to the league. He is the unquestioned guy. He is the face. He is the everything of the NFL right now. And for a brief moment, it looked like, oh God, we may have just lost him for the entire season. He goes to the locker room, he gets x-rays, and he's immediately ruled out. So Matt Moore plays the rest of the game starting from early second quarter to the end of it. And he does okay. He didn't have to do a whole bunch, but he did okay because the defense was out there dominating. But I think when Mahomes went out, what was it, like 17-6 or 20-6? Right around there, and it felt like it was a big momentum shift. And even the announcers, Troy Aikman and Joe Buck, mentioned it. It's like, well, if Mahomes out, Denver is suddenly going to start feeling like they're in this because, Matt Moore is a big drop-off from Patrick Mahomes. No offense to Matt Moore, but anybody would agree with that. So Matt Moore comes in, and he does okay. He went 10 for 19, 117 yards, a touchdown, and only got sacked once. And I think that touchdown was like a 50-yard pass to Tyreek Hill? I didn't see the touchdown. I just read about it, but he doesn't have to do a whole lot. Now, granted, this Kansas City defense is not going to play like this every single week. But this felt like the defense we were promised by Kansas City in the offseason, where they said, oh, we've made all these big moves. We're going to be better than we were last year. And then for a vast majority of how the season started, it felt like they were about as bad or even worse than they were last season on defense. Except for last night when they just came out and dominated. I mean, Joe Flacco was sacked like 5 times in the first half. They got most of these sacks in the first half. It was just an ugly, dominating effort by the Kansas City defense that just gutted a Broncos team that was really, feeling like some things were about to change in the AFC West. They were coming in and they felt like they had a really good chance to win it and make some noise in their division. Now that's all done and they're back in the basement. Kansas City, they tried to win time of possession and they did. I don't remember the exact numbers. I think they had like 5 more minutes in possession than the Broncos in this game. They at least tried to run the ball more, but that might be because, Mahomes left in the early second quarter. I mean, they had 27 rush attempts. That's more than double what they had the last game. They had like 11 rush attempts in their last game, so at least they tried to commit to the run. They only had like 80 yards, but still, it's something. So going forward, you're going to have to see this defense step up and this run game step up for Kansas City in order to stay afloat without Patrick Mahomes. But this was just an ugly game by the Broncos offense. I mean, it got so bad that even Troy Aikman during the broadcast said, I'm surprised at how many people are still here watching this game. It was that bad. Denver went like 1 of 13 on third downs. Couldn't protect Flacco. The drops, the fumbles. It was just all too much for them to overcome. Flacco went 21 of 34 for 213 yards. Like I said, 8 sacks. But he had all 3 fumbles in this game. But only lost one of them. All 3 fumbles in this game were on Flacco because he was under duress the entire night. Like I mentioned earlier, 8 sacks, a career high for Joe Flacco. Oh, man. It was just an ugly game for Denver, and they're back to being just bad. They had 2 good weeks, but that may have been because they played bad teams. So once again, Kansas City wins this one 30-6. Kansas City improves to 5-2, and Denver falls to 2-5. We're going to switch to news, but a quick segue into that, we're going to talk about Patrick Mahomes because he's part of news now. Like I mentioned just a second ago, he suffered what is believed to be a dislocated kneecap. Now they're getting since we're recording early in the morning, a lot earlier than we normally do. The word on the street is he's going to get an MRI done on his kneecap this morning to see if there's any ligament damage. But the Chiefs are very optimistic that it's not severe. The initial prognosis from what everybody's been saying this morning is that he's expecting to miss at least 3 weeks. These next 3 weeks. So the next 3 weeks for Kansas City, you ready for this? This is what Matt Moore is going to have to go up against. Home game versus the Packers. Home game versus the Vikings. And then a road game at Tennessee. Those are the next 3 weeks for the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's a really tough draw for them. They're facing 3 tough defenses in the next 3 weeks. And you're going to throw Matt Moore out there who hasn't started a game since what, like 2017? It's been a couple years for Matt Moore. Packers are a good team. They know how to rush the passer. So hopefully Kansas City's O-line can be better by then. The Vikings are another good defense. We're going to talk about them a bit more later. And the Titans, for all we've, banged on them for being bad, their defense has been pretty good. They can rush the passer too. So the bad news for Kansas City is, it's hopeful that, Mahomes can be back in a couple weeks and everything will be okay. But you're about to walk into a buzzsaw of tough defenses that Matt Moore is going to have to go up against. And that's a tough draw for the guy. So like I said, the Kansas City defense is really going to have to step up. I mean, optimistically speaking, they could go 1-2 through this. They could go 1-2 and, be fine. They'd be 6-4 at the end of this 3-game road stretch. And it won't be too bad, in my opinion. Maybe that might take them out of the running for the, top 2 seeds, but, you're still going to make the playoffs. I don't know, but I'm just saying these next 3 games are going to be tough matchups for Kansas City. They're really going to have to find their run game, and their defense is going to have to keep finding these big games. But I think this might be a blessing in disguise for Kansas City that Mahomes got hurt. Now, I know that sounds bad, but hear me out. We all know Mahomes has been, playing hurt the last couple weeks with his ankle injury. And now he's sidelined with a different injury. He could be out 3 to 4 weeks, Go heal up that ankle, man. Now you can come back 100% healthy. Not like 70% healthy. You can come back 100% healthy and be the guy that, we've been waiting to see for a couple weeks because you've been playing hurt. So, to Mahomes, go kick your feet up, man. Go rest. Go relax. Let Matt Moore and this offense handle things. And if they go 1-2, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's not. It's better than 0-3. And who knows? Maybe they might steal one of these games and go 2-1. But right now, initial prognosis, they're saying at least 3 weeks. And he should hopefully be back after that. All right, moving on to some other news that we had scheduled to talk about for a bit. On Tuesday's show, while we were recording, the Los Angeles Rams made a bevy of trades that I didn't know about until after we had finished recording and I started editing. So it started out with the Los Angeles Rams trading their starting cornerback Marcus Peters to the Baltimore Ravens for a player and a draft pick. They sent starting cornerback Marcus Peters to the Ravens for linebacker Kenny Young and a 5th round pick in 2020. Now, when I initially saw this, my first thought was, oh, the Rams are giving up on the season. Because Aqib Talib got put on IR, and now they're shipping out their other starting corner. And it just felt like, that the Rams realized that this is more of a transition year, that they're not really here to compete. And that's okay. That's what it felt like, seeing that trade happen. That was my initial gut reaction to it. And the Ravens get a starting corner that can come in, and the Ravens are rebooting their secondary halfway through the season. What it feels like, so they can get some more defensive help to, keep the stranglehold on that AFC North. So I guess it's kind of a win-win for both teams. I mean, from the sound of it, it sounded like the Rams didn't like how Marcus Peters would kind of freelance when he played. He didn't just, did the play that was called. He would kind of, take liberties with it, which isn't a bad thing. It just depends on how you like to coach. From all the sounds, it sounds like Marcus Peters is one of the most professional players in the league, and how he handled this exit. But my initial gut reaction to this trade was the Rams are giving up, and they're just building some draft capital. Well, that wasn't their only trade. They had two more. Their second one, they sent a 2021 undisclosed pick. I couldn't figure out which one it was. I tried. To the Cleveland Browns for center Austin Corbett. Corbett? Can't pronounce it. This one was a bit interesting because, the Rams have had offensive line struggles. Cleveland's had offensive line struggles. But Austin Corbett was the 33rd overall pick in the 2018 draft. So he's been in the league for like almost a year and a half, and they tried to put him, like, from what I'm to understand, Cleveland tried to put him everywhere on that offensive line. Literally, they apparently tried to put him at every single position. Left tackle, right tackle, guards, center. They tried to put him everywhere, and he just couldn't fit. So they just gave up on him. But now that he's coming to LA, you got to wonder, is there a chance he could be inserted into the starting lineup to potentially play at left tackle to replace the injured Joe Noteboom that we talked about on Tuesday, who's now on IR. The Rams have greatly struggled in pass protection, and, maybe Corbett can come in and maybe help. I don't know, but, maybe. But Rams send, an undisclosed 2021 draft pick to Cleveland for him. And then things went quiet for a while. That was the main stuff in the afternoon, like mid to late afternoon, and things went quiet. But Twitter didn't go quiet because insiders on Twitter, like NFL insiders, were saying something else is in the work. Something else might happen within the next day or two with the Rams. Just keep an eye on it. I'm like, okay, cool. And I'm sitting there chilling, late at night. I don't remember when the next trade happened, the bombshell trade. But I got a text from a friend. He said, Ramsey got traded. I'm like, what? Jalen Ramsey, the disgruntled Jaguars star cornerback, has been traded to the Los Angeles Rams. And my jaw hit the floor. Because within 5 hours, it went from the Rams are giving up on the season to the Rams are tripling down on being competitive. And I love it. The Rams send 2 first-round picks, a first-rounder in 2020 and a first-rounder in 2021 to the Jags. Oh, and they also threw in a 4th-round pick in 2021. So 3 draft picks, 2 first-rounders and a 4th to the Jags for Jalen Ramsey. And wow, I was truly stunned because it sounded like the Jags really didn't want to trade Jalen Ramsey, and by that I mean Shad Khan, the owner, didn't want to trade Jalen Ramsey. But I think it kind of reached a point where they knew there wasn't coming back. After Shad Khan had a heart-to-heart with Jalen Ramsey last week, and he said he would play, and then he didn't play. And he said he still had a back injury. But now he's in LA, and he apparently doesn't got a back injury anymore. It's funny how that works out, huh? Fastest healing back ever. But Jalen Ramsey is an elite player despite his antics off the field. He literally just faked an injury for 3 weeks because he didn't want to play in Jacksonville anymore. He's an elite shutdown corner. I think he's an automatic improvement over Marcus Peters. The Rams are... This isn't like... a lot of people have been saying, oh, this is a win now, win a Super Bowl this year move. I don't see it that way. I see it more as a win a Super Bowl within the next 2 to 3 years kind of move. That's what this move is. The Rams are quadrupling down on being a super competitive team for the next couple years. Not winning the Super Bowl this year. They still think they can be competitive this year, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that this isn't a move that they're making to win a Super Bowl this year. This is a move they're making to win a Super Bowl within the next few years. And they kind of have to because they don't have any draft picks to really help them out. They haven't had a first-round draft pick since 2017, and they won't have one until 2022. That's 5 years of no first-round draft picks because of trades that they've made. And granted, they have a lot of talent, so they have to find a way to win with what they got. I think Jalen Ramsey's going to come in and help their defense, but their problems aren't on defense. Their problem is on offense, that they can't protect Jared Goff, that they have no running game, that everything was built around Todd Gurley, and now he's just kind of become just a random guy on their roster. Their offense needs help, not their defense. So bringing in Jalen Ramsey won't, fix this team and suddenly make them better. I think it'll make them better, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to fix what's wrong with them. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, it was like a trade extravaganza on Tuesday. Just 2 weeks before the trade deadline. It was crazy. Rams went wild with trades. But let's end the news section on a good note. Mason Rudolph, Steelers quarterback, has apparently been cleared of concussion protocol. Steelers are on a bye this week, so he's going to get some extra time to heal, but he's apparently cleared concussion protocol, and that's great news because we were very scared when he got hurt with his concussion. It's good to see that he's healthy and he's ready to come back. So that's it for news. We're going to transition now into a preview portion of the podcast. We got 4 teams on a bye this week. Browns, Steelers, Buccaneers, and Panthers all on a bye, so we won't be talking about any of them this week. So first team up on the preview podcast, preview portion of the podcast, I should say, we were just talking about this team for almost a good 8 minutes. The Los Angeles Rams are going all the way to Atlanta to take on the Atlanta Falcons. The 3-3 Rams taking on the 1-5 Falcons. And I just now realized I forgot to write down records for all of these teams, so forgive me. Just this first one. New look defense for Los Angeles in this game. Like we mentioned, Ramsey's going to be in there. He's expected to play. He's been practicing. His back is apparently magically healed. Imagine that. But like we mentioned on Tuesday, Aqib Talib, another member of the secondary, he's on injured reserve. And safety John Johnson also got placed on injured reserve. So they're going to have a bunch of new faces in that secondary for the Rams this weekend. And also the Rams defense has allowed 35 points per game since week 4. That's like that's in the top 5 for most of the league since then. But you got to imagine that when Ramsey comes in, he's primarily going to be locked up on Julio and just try to take him out of the game. Force Ryan to beat you with Matt Ryan to beat you with Austin Hooper and Calvin Ridley, which he can. They can put up yards. Austin Hooper's been having a heck of a year down in Atlanta, despite being 1-5. But for the Rams, in my opinion, it's not about their defense. It's about their offense. They have to protect Jared Goff. They have to. But the good news is they're playing an Atlanta defense that doesn't know how to rush the passer. Atlanta is tied with Miami for the least sacks in the league so far this year. They both have 5 so far this season. So this may be a game where either Atlanta finally gets some sacks or the Rams can protect Goff, because I think when you can protect him, he's not forced to make bad throws, and they'll be fine. Just protect him. That's what it's going to come down to in this game. Can they keep him upright and keep the pressure out of his face? Another question about this game: will Todd Gurley play? That's been a question all week. He didn't play last week. Will he play this week? Like we mentioned, he's kind of just becoming a guy on their team. He's not the focal point of their offense anymore. He's just some random guy now. He's not the Todd Gurley we knew. But a guy I really feel bad for in this game is Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's having a heck of a year. You know, there's only really been one game, in my opinion, where he hasn't played good, looking back on it, this entire season, and that was week 2 against Philadelphia. He's played good for most of this season. It's just his team around him is just so bad, specifically on defense, that they're just blowing the game for him. The Falcons have the number 26 total defense in the league. They're giving up a total of 388.8 yards per game. So maybe this could be a shootout. You know, the Rams defense hasn't been good the last few weeks, and the Falcons defense has been awful for a while. I mean, you watch any of their last couple games, guys are getting wide open down the field, and there aren't, defenders within 15, 20 yards of them. Guys are just running free left and right, and this could turn into a track meet really quick for the Los Angeles Rams. I'm going to take the Rams to win this one. I just can't realistically buy into the Falcons anymore. I like Matt Ryan. I think he's having a good year. It just sucks that his defense is blowing it for him. All right, moving on to our next game. Miami at Buffalo. I know Miami doesn't have a win. They're like 0-5. They're 0-5. Buffalo's 4-1. Their Buffalo Bills are like 4-1 for the first time since 2011, if I remember correctly. Yeah. I want to rant a minute about Miami because they did something this week that irked me. Remember last week, halfway through the week, they said Josh Rosen is going to be our starter for the rest of the year. Well, Sunday comes and they play Washington, and Rosen has a bad day. His offensive line isn't protecting him at all. He's making bad throws, throws a couple interceptions. So head coach Brian Flores, right? That's his name, I think. I could be getting that wrong. Anyway, the Dolphins head coach says, okay, we're going to bench you and put in Ryan Fitzpatrick for the rest of this game. Fitzpatrick plays the rest of the game. Dolphins almost win it. And now coming out Monday or Tuesday, it was either Tuesday. No, I think it was Wednesday. Head coach Brian Flores says, okay, Ryan Fitzpatrick is back to being our starter. Basically shattering any confidence that Josh Rosen was either starting to build or had left in him. Now you put in Ryan Fitzpatrick because he played good in the second half against a bad Washington defense. It's just a horrific look for the Dolphins. The tank job is in full effect. That's just coaching incompetence, in my opinion. Because we know what Ryan Fitzpatrick is. He'll look good for one half of football, and then he'll go back to being bad, and you're going to bench him in a game. Not just, I don't mean in a random game. I mean literally in one game from now. You're going to bench him. He's probably going to get benched this Sunday, for crying out loud, when he throws 5 interceptions against a really good Bills defense. And you're going to go back to Josh Rosen and ask him to save you. But he can't because you shattered what little confidence that poor man had left. I feel so bad for Josh Rosen. Every time he goes to an organization, they just treat him so poorly. Poor guy just never gets a break. But the tank job is in full effect in Miami. They're apparently also, I know we talked about this a couple weeks ago, they're still shopping around Kenyon Drake, their star running back, who's not really a star, but he's their running back. So they're apparently listening to see if they can get a good trade offer for him. They said if the right price comes around, they'll go for him. But who knows? The Bills' defense is going to be in full effect. We haven't seen them in a week. They had a bye week. Last time we saw them, they were murdering Marcus Mariota and the Titans' offensive line. So the Bills' defense is going to feast in this game. They're going to come after a very bad Miami offense. And that's going to be the game. I think this Bills defense could probably even score a touchdown or 2 in this game. The Bills offense just has to coast. That's all they got to do. They don't even have to come out and pull out their best stuff. In fact, if you want, you can come out and experiment with stuff. You got some cool plays drawn up in your head that you think could work well against other teams. Let's bust them out in this game. Nobody's going to be watching. It's the freaking Dolphins. So come out, bust out some weapons, and try some new things, and See if it works. Why not? And win like a 20-3 game. That'll probably be the final score. Heck, the Bills might score their highest total points for the season in this game. Bills are going to win big. It's going to be about as one-sided as you can get. It's going to be like a tiger fighting a puppy. It's going to get bad quickly. Bills win this one. All right, moving on to another not-so-good matchup. Jacksonville Jaguars going all the way to Cincinnati to take on the winless Bengals. Jags could really use a win. They've lost 2 straight, if I remember correctly. The last time we saw the Jaguars, they looked super bad on offense last week. They scored like 6 points. Gardner Minshew had his worst game as a pro. And the Jags were just shut down offensively. But the good news is they're playing a really, 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 really bad defense in the Bengals. The Bengals are the number 31 defense in the league in total defense, giving up an average of 426 yards per game. But more importantly than that, the Bengals' rush defense is apparently atrocious. Now, I haven't watched enough Bengals football to currently state that. I'm just going off of what stats are. The Bengals' rush defense ranks 32nd in the league, so dead last, giving up an average of 184.5 rush yards per game. So you got to wonder, this could be a massive day for Leonard Fournette. Could he do another 200-yard rushing game this season? I wonder if the Jags are going to come out and just feel lighter because the Jalen Ramsey stuff is no longer over their head. Because they had to be asked about it literally every day that he wasn't there, but now he's gone. Maybe things are going to be better. I got nothing good to say about the Bengals. I got nothing good. Like, AJ Green comes back like maybe in a week or two. There's nothing good to say. This team's just horrendously bad. They're really, really bad. Jaguars win this one. Moving on to an actual competitive game. Vikings at Lions. Vikings offense has been clicking on all cylinders these last 2 weeks. They've reignited their passing offense. They're getting guys open downfield. Kirk Cousins and Adam Thielen are eating. I think it goes to show that they're putting up points and moving the ball downfield even when their running game isn't working like it did last week. I mean, Dalvin Cook had 40 rushing yards last week, and most of their running yards went to some guy named Madison. So, I think the Vikings have, completely changed their offense a couple weeks into the season. They deserve a ton of credit for that. Vikings offense is number 11 in total offense with 372.3 yards per game, and number 3 in rushing offense, 159 rush yards per game. And conversely, the Vikings are the number 5 total defense in the league with 310 yards per game. Number 7 passing defense with 218.8 yards per game. And number 9 in rushing defense with 91.5 rush yards per game. Translation is, they've been solid. Very solid. They have the potential to be solid on both sides of the ball. Mostly defense, and their offense, has been, better these last few weeks than it was earlier. But they're going on the road to play a division rival. And you got to wonder how that division rival's doing right now, because we're coming off a Monday Night Football game for the Lions where they got screwed by the refs in the fourth quarter. And you got to wonder if that's still lingering over them. Are they going to come out flat or distracted in this game? And you got to wonder if that's going to detract from them in any way, shape, or form. We've seen it for teams that have come off of tough losses on a short week or heartbreaking losses. And they're just not the same next week. They're just off. So it could totally happen. The Lions have the number 9 passing offense in the league. They averaged over 262.2 yards per game in the passing offense. So it's going to come down to whether Matt Stafford can push the ball downfield with Kenny Golladay, T.J. Hawkinson, who, for God's sakes, quit dropping the ball, dude. I've counted at least 2 different touchdown passes this year he's dropped in the end zone. T.J. Hawkinson, Marvin Harrison, and maybe they can reignite the run game again with Kerryon Johnson, because it wasn't there Monday night. So let's see if it happens this Sunday. Lions defense hasn't been the best. They were feeling really confident about themselves after the Kansas City Chief game, even though they gave up a bunch of yards and a bunch of points. They felt like they were getting better, but they currently like 29th in total defense with an average of 413.2 yards per game. They just got to learn to start stopping people, and right now they haven't been. But I'm starting to buy back into the Lions. I mean, not the Lions, the Vikings. I think the Lions are a fun team actually to watch. They may end up being like a 7-9 or 8-8 team, but they're going to be fun. That's a lot better than they were last year. They weren't really fun at all last year, but they're fun now. But I'm going to take the Vikings to win this one. I'm really starting to buy back into the Vikings, and this will be, I think, a good little test for them because these last 2 weeks they haven't played the best defenses. The Giants are a horrific defense, and the Eagles' entire secondary is so banged up. They got nobody. So, I think the Lions are a bit tiny bit better defensive matchup, but we'll see if the Vikings can come out and keep this hot streak rolling with how they've been on offense. All right, moving on to our next game. The Oakland Raiders, fresh off a bye, 3-2. They've won 2 straight, if I remember correctly. And they're going all the way to Green Bay to take on the Packers. This game suddenly got very interesting now that Patrick Mahomes is out for the next 3 weeks. The Raiders could make some noise in the AFC West. They could make a lot of noise. And this is a homecoming game. John Gruden, the Raiders head coach, used to be on the coaching staff in Green Bay decades ago. If I remember correctly, he was the quarterback coach there. Yeah, when Brett Favre was there in the 90s, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So a homecoming for John Gruden. But speaking to the Packers real quick, Green Bay is hurting right now, specifically in the wide receiver core. Devontae Adams is doubtful for this game with the turf toe injury. He could really miss some significant time with that injury. Geronimo Allison has a concussion. He's also doubtful for this game. I think they've got a couple other injuries on the offensive side of the ball. So the question is going to become, who does Rodgers throw to? He needs some help right now. So if the wide receiver core is banged up and they're missing guys and they have to have, a bunch of lower tier guys step up, does that embolden the Raiders defense to step up to stop the run and force Rodgers to beat them with these no-name guys and Jimmy Graham, who hasn't really been playing well? I think that's something to watch for. That if they can come up and stop the Packers' run game and force Rodgers to force these balls to not so good guys, that could be a big factor in this game. The Raiders' offense isn't good. If you haven't been watching them, their offense isn't good. They're well below average in total offense. They're well below average in passing offense. The only thing that they're good at is their rushing offense. They're the number 9 total rushing offense. No, I'm sorry, number 8 total rushing offense. They're averaging 134.4 rush yards per game. So it's back to the blueprint that we've been talking about for weeks. Can the Packers stop the run game? They did on Monday night. Can they do it against the Raiders? So for the Packers, it's just going to be put a bunch of guys in the box and slow down Josh Jacobs and tell Derek Carr, the Raiders quarterback, you have to beat us. They won't have Tyrell Williams. Apparently, he's still out. Their number 1 wide receiver. So it's going to fall on guys like Darren Waller, their tight end, who signed a big extension this week. I think they locked him up through 2021, 2022. So it's going to be it's going to fall on guys like Darren Waller to help Derek Carr move the ball. This might come down to the Raiders having to throw the ball a lot and be something they haven't been all year, which is a good passing offense. So this could be a big day for the Packers defense. Just put a bunch of guys in the box and slow down the run and get after the quarterback. I mean, that's how the Packers live defensively all this season long. Sacks and turnovers. That's their thing. And they could get a couple this weekend. I'm going to go with the Packers in this one. Packers are riding high right now. They've won a lot in a row. They're 5-1 now? And I just need to see consistency from the Raiders. We haven't seen them in a week. I don't know how they're going to come out. But maybe they could shock us. I didn't think they'd beat the Bears, and they did. I didn't think they'd beat the Colts, and they did. So you know what? Well, we'll see what the Raiders can do. They're frisky. The Fighting John Grudens are real frisky. Once again, I got the Packers winning. Moving on to what I think could be a very fun game. Houston Texans at the Indianapolis Colts. A nice little AFC South divisional rivalry game. Colts coming off a bye. They're still a little banged up. Still no... Oh, no, wait, no. I think Malik Hooker's still like a week or two out from being back. Maybe a bit longer. I don't really remember, but I think they're mostly healthy. I think Darius Leonard's coming back in this game. T.Y. Hilton's got an extra week of rest to heal. Marlon Mack will hopefully be back closer to 100%, the running back. But right now, it's all about the Texans. The Texans are white hot right now. They're averaging 396.8 yards per game. That's a number 6 total offense. And they've been white hot, especially these last 2 weeks, mainly because they protected Deshaun Watson. Watson has been sacked 0 times. 0 these last 2 weeks combined. That is impressive. That is great. That is phenomenal. Because he was on pace like early in the season to be sacked like 80 times. That Laramie Tunsil trade is looking marvelous right now. This Texans team is, looking like the absolute front runner to win this division. They are good offensively as long as they protect Deshaun Watson. And that's good because they're going up against an Indianapolis Colts defense that, hasn't really been that great. They're about average in terms of sacks. They've got 13 on the year. So they're floating right around average, just maybe a bit below average. It's just going to come down to, can they protect Deshaun Watson? That's what it's going to come down to, in my opinion, in every game. If you protect Deshaun Watson, you have a very great chance to win the game. You got too many weapons for them to stop you. You got DeAndre Hopkins, you got Will Fuller, you got Kiki QT. You also have a nice stable of running backs in Duke Johnson and what's his face? I'm forgetting right now. Oh, God. This is so embarrassing. Let me flip back through my notes. This is so embarrassing. Oh, hold please. Your call is very important to us. Carlos Hyde. I can't believe I miffed on that name. Carlos Hyde. They got a nice little 1-2 punch at running back that, they traded for right before the season started because Lamar Miller tore his ACL. And a lot of people are questioning, how are you going to make these guys work? Well, you've seen how they're going to make it work, and they make it work great. This Texans team is good, and now all of a sudden there's a void in the power structure in the AFC. The Texans could, start building an insurmountable lead. They already have a tiebreaker over Kansas City. So, Houston could suddenly close in on the second round, not the second round, the number 2 overall seed here pretty quick. If they start building a lead in this division. I really like this Houston offense. Their defense seems okay. Not the greatest in the world, but they seem okay. J.J. Watt's been playing a lot better. Whitney Merciless has been playing good. I think this defense is going to be okay. Their offense is what's going to lead them. They're really, 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 really fun to watch. But speaking of their opponent, the Colts, the Colts are going to be in every... The Colts are going to have to score points. Let me say that first. They're going to have to score points in this game. Jacoby Brissett's going to have to throw for a couple touchdowns, and Marlon Mack's going to have to rush for a bunch of yards. They're going to have to keep pace because this defense will not be able to hold Houston back all day long unless they're, sacking Deshaun 7 times a game in this game, like we've seen sometimes this year. They're going to have to score points, but I have no doubt that the Colts are going to find a way to be in this game, probably even in the fourth quarter. I don't think this is going to be a blowout game. The Colts have been in literally every game they've played in so far this year, even when they're vastly outmatched and, out-talented by other teams. They've been in every game. They've, you name the game, they've been in it. Chiefs, Chargers, Raiders, they've been in every game. So there's not a single doubt in my mind they'll be in it because they have a great head coach who can get these guys fired up and get a good game plan in there. I just don't think they have the weapons to, go to toe-to-toe with this Houston team. But here's an interesting fact. Jacoby Brissett as a starter is 3-0 versus the Houston Texans. That is the only team he has more than 2 wins against in his entire career is against the Houston Texans. And, division rivalry games can always get weird, so, maybe the Colts pull off a massive upset in Indianapolis. But I'm going to take the Texans to win. I'm really buying into what Houston is. And what they are is fun to watch offensively. So, once again, I take the Texans to win this one. But don't be stunned if it's a close game in the fourth quarter. That's all I'm saying. The Colts are going to be in every game this season. All right, moving on to our next one. This next game that we're about to talk about could get very, very weird. And I'm talking about the Arizona Cardinals at the New York Giants. This game could be fun to watch. Now follow me on this one. You got two win teams, 2 really bad defenses. Something's got to give, you know what I'm saying? And by 2 bad defenses, I mean this game might come down to who has the ball last, like it did last week between Atlanta and Arizona. That game was fun, but that was my game of the week last weekend. But Giants defense is bad in rush defense and pass defense. Their only good thing that they can do, surprisingly, is rush the passer. They're the number 12 team in the league in terms of sacks. So they're slightly above average in terms of sacks. And that should worry Cardinals fans because, through the first couple of weeks, Kyler Murray was getting sacked a lot and their offense really wasn't clicking. But these last 2 weeks where they're on this winning streak, he's only been sacked once these last 2 weeks combined. So, you're going to put him up against a team that kind of knows how to rush the passer. It could be trouble for Kyler Murray unless, they really have solved their offensive line issues in Arizona. The Giants are still hurting, though, offensively. I don't know the status of Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram. They could potentially miss this game. Saquon Barkley sounds like he might play in this game. That's what he's been saying all week long. He's been at practice, so, maybe he'll be there. That's big for the Giants team. I don't know if he'll be on a pitch count or anything like that, but they could really use him. This game really could come down to who has the ball last, like it did between the Cardinals and Falcons. And I think that's fun. I like shootouts. Shootouts are fun. But I think this Cardinals team going on the road, and I think they might get a couple. I think Kyler Murray might get sacked a couple times in this game. I'm gonna take the Giants to win this one because I think the Giants are gonna suddenly start making noise in the NFC East. I really think they're about to. Just keep an eye on them. I'm not saying they're winning it or anything. I'm just saying keep an eye on the Giants. They're only 1 game back, and the Cowboys and Eagles play each other Sunday Night Football. I'm just saying keep an eye on them. All right, moving on to the next game. I know I'm going through these games kind of quickly, but some of them are kind of duds with one good team playing a really bad team. So I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time on the dead games. We got some good games we're going to get to here in a couple minutes. But we got another dud right here. San Francisco at Washington football team. If you haven't been paying attention, you wouldn't know that I love the 49ers, what they're doing. They're playing great defense, especially through the defensive line that has a bunch of first-round picks on it. Their secondary's balling out, and they're running the ball a lot and doing play action. It's kind of almost a throwback team in a sense. That's what Troy Aikman said last night. They're playing football the way a lot of teams used to play it. Not so much anymore, but the 49ers are undefeated. They're 5-0. Correct me if I'm wrong. Against the 1-5 Washington team. 49ers are number 2 in total defense with 237.4 yards per game. Number 1 in passing defense with 150.2 yards per game. And number 6 rushing D with 83 yards per game. Basic translation, the 49ers defense is fantastic. And they're going up against a Washington offense that if you've been listening to Bill Callahan, their interim head coach, they're going to run the ball a lot. So Adrian Peterson's probably going to get like 25, at least, 20, 25 touches in this game. So 49ers could just, stack the box and go after him. Uh, Washington's in the bottom of is either towards the bottom or at the bottom of almost every statistical category on offense, defense. They're not a good team, despite what Bill Callahan wants you to believe that, and especially their head coach and GM, not their head coach, their owner and GM wants you to believe they're not a good team. They're not. Don't fall for it. Just because they beat the Dolphins barely, they're not a good team. And this game could get ugly very fast. This is a very good 49ers defense. They're going to come in and murder Case Keenum in this offensive line. If there's any hope, Terry McLaurin and Case Keenum are going to have to connect a lot in this game for multiple scores, because I really think this 49ers offense is going to turn into a track meet against this Washington defense. And I got the 49ers in this one big. Big, big, big. It's going to get ugly fast, people. All right, moving on to, I think, an actual competitive game, not because I think it's good teams. I think they're both bad teams. It'll be a low-scoring one. We got the Los Angeles Chargers going all the way to Tennessee to take on the Titans. Very interesting situation in Tennessee. They bench former first-round draft pick Marcus Mariota, bring in another former first-round draft pick in Ryan Tannehill to replace him. And, will Tannehill provide a spark for this Titans offense that's been very bad to watch? They're the number 27 total offense in the league with 290.5 yards per game. They're averaging most of that being Derrick Henry. They're bad to watch. They're a very bad offense. Their offensive line is atrocious. And now you have Ryan Tannehill, who's more of a statue quarterback, which means he's not mobile. So if a pass rush is coming at him, he's just going to eat it. Not that Mariota didn't do that. He did, but still. Their O-line is bad, and it's going to get this guy killed. And the Titans aren't going to get better on offense is what I'm trying to say. Their defense is great. It's really, really great, and it's fun to watch. They're very stout defensively. It's just being wasted on a bad offensive team. Titans have the number 8 total defense. They're giving up 321.8 yards per game. That's how they're going to win this game. Through defense. You're going to have to get after Phillip Rivers. You're going to have to force him to make a couple turnovers. And your defense may have to score a touchdown in this game. Because I really don't see Ryan Tannehill in this offense putting up multiple touchdowns. I'm sorry. Derrick Henry is going to have to go off if the Titans have any hope of winning this game. But for the Chargers, I mean, if you can't beat this team right now, then I don't know what to tell you, Charger fans. Your season's not good. I've already abandoned the Chargers bandwagon, but if you can't overcome this Titans offense, I know Ryan Tannehill's a different quarterback. I still don't think it's going to make much of a difference. If you can't overcome this team right now, your season's toast. I hate to tell you. You're going to be 2-5 because they're already 2-4. They're riding a 2-game losing streak, if I remember correctly. Yeah, both these teams really need a win. But like I said, the Chargers can't win this one. I think their season's done. I know that's hard to say. They're only 3 games under 500 in a now open AFC West. I don't care. If you go into, I know it's on the road too. If you can't beat this Titans offense, if you can't score more than 13 points, which is what I think the Titans limit is, if you can't do that, your season's done. It's done so. I don't care about you anymore, and I will not respect you. But I think the Chargers win this one. If they prove me wrong, then it's over for them, in my opinion. All right, moving on to, I think the Chargers and Titans was our first late game. I think that game kicks off at 4 Eastern. Now to another late game. I think this one could actually be very fun. Saints at Bears. We got a couple big questions for this one. Alvin Kamara, Saints star running back. He sounds like he might not play. He's been dealing with an ankle issue, a high ankle issue, maybe even a sprain these last couple weeks. So it sounds like he might not be able to play in this game. So Saints go out this week, sign former Lions running back Zach Zenner. Zach Zenner, those are Z's. Just trying to pronounce it right. To come in and play in this game, just in case Kamara can't go. And we know how good the Bears' defense is. Last time we saw them, though, they were getting cracked open by the Raiders. So maybe they got something to prove in this game. It's in Chicago. Who knows? So, Saints' offense could look a little different this week. Maybe Alvin Kamara's not in. Maybe they're less reliant on a running game. And, maybe Teddy Bridgewater has to come out and throw it, 35 or more times this game. Bears have the number 5 rushing defense, 83 rush yards per game. Basically what I'm saying is make Teddy Bridgewater beat you, which might be what the game plan is. Zach Zenner's only been there for half the week. So we'll see what the Saints come out and try to do offensively. And, I said, the Bears rush defense is good, 83 rush yards per game. Josh Jacobs, the last time they played, the Raiders running back, cracked him up on 100 yards, a touchdown. So we'll see what kind of Bears defense we get in this game. Another big question for this one, will Mitch Trubisky play? He's apparently been at practice all week long. It sounds like he's going to be good to go for this one, and that's good for them. They don't want to trot Chase Daniel back out there. So Bears are going to get back their starting quarterback. We're going to see if he's 100%. We really won't know until we see him play. That's big for them. The Saints have the number 10 total defense in the league. They've been getting better and better each week. They've, averaged their defense has averaged a pretty low points per game total these last couple weeks. They've held, I think, 2 of the last 3 weeks, they've held guys under 20 points. Their defense is playing great football. They're giving up, 340.5 yards per game. This could be a very defensive-heavy matchup in this game. The final score for this game could easily be 13-12. That kind of low scoring. Will Lutz's 55-yard field goal to win the game kind of low scoring. Where neither offense can really get anything going kind of thing. I just don't know what kind of Bears defense we're going to get. They're coming back from London. They're coming off a bye. Last time we saw them, they were getting trounced by the Raiders of all people. And we've already talked about how bad the Raiders' offense is. I think the Saints' offense isn't, world beaters. They'll find ways to win. But without Alvin Kamara, it's going to be interesting to see what Sean Payton draws up. But I've only picked against the Saints once all year, and I'm not going to do it in this game. I've got the Saints winning this one. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears defense, shows back up in a big way. I mean, Khalil Mack had a rough outing last time he was on the field. No sacks, I think 1 or 2 tackles. It was a rough outing for him. So, he's probably going to bounce back in a big way in this game. But I'll take the Saints in this one, but I wouldn't be stunned if the Bears win it. All right, moving on to the last of our late games. Ravens at Seahawks. This is going to be a very fun one. And the Earl Thomas revenge game. Earl Thomas, once a former member of the Legion of Boom in Seattle, has a homecoming in Seattle, now part of the Ravens. I don't know if Marcus Peters is going to play in this game. I haven't heard anything to say he isn't, but we'll see if he is. But this is a matchup of premier offenses in the NFL. The Seahawks have the number 5 total offense. They're averaging just a shade under 400 yards per game with 399 yards per game. Versus the Ravens, who have the number 1 total offense in the league. They're averaging 450.7 yards per game. So what I'm telling you is, this is going to be a fireworks show in Seattle in the late afternoon. And the defenses really haven't been good. I'm not saying they're bad. They're more like meh. They're meh defenses. They're okay. They're not great. They're meh. I think this could be game of the weekend. This has the potential to be game of the weekend. Russell Wilson's playing phenomenal football. 14 touchdowns, no interceptions so far this season. And Lamar Jackson looked like he got kind of back on track with his offensive play style last week with his 200 passing yards, 150 rushing yard day. I think he's averaging, 70 rush yards per game? I mean, sweet Jesus. He's got the most rushing yards out of any quarterback in the NFL. He's got over 400 rushing yards. The closest guy to him is Kyler Murray, and he barely has like almost 250. So it's the Seahawks are going to have to try and contain Lamar Jackson and force him to beat you with his arm. That's going to be the way to beat you, because the Ravens love to run the football with Lamar and Mark Ingram and the rest of that stable of running backs. So force him to beat you. Force him to use Andrews, the tight end, and Hollywood Brown, and the rest of that wide receiver core. Force them to beat you. And for the Ravens defense, you just got to find a way to try and I guess slow Russell Wilson down. I guess that's the only solution I have. I don't know how you beat him right now. He is playing elite football. He is playing, I think, the stretch right now some of the best football of his career. And that's saying a lot. And I truly believe he is playing the best football of his career. If you haven't watched any of his football this entire season, do yourself a favor and watch this game. He is going to put on a show. And I think it could be a shootout, because I don't really believe in either of these defenses, especially the Ravens. I know they did good last week, but that was against the Bengals. And the Seahawks are just okay. So I think this could be a high-scoring shootout. This could get interesting late in the fourth quarter to see who has the ball last. But I'll take the Seahawks in this one. I really like Russell Wilson. It's in Seattle. I think they'll just do enough and walk out of there with a win. I'll take the Seahawks in this one. It could be a very, very fun game, though. All right, moving on to the Sunday Night Football matchup. Oh, here we go. Eagles at Cowboys. Both of these teams, this is a big win. This is a must-win, basically, for both teams. Eagles in the middle of a 3-game road stint. They really need a win to kind of silence things. Both teams are 3-3. Cowboys are in the middle of a 3-game losing streak. They desperately need a win to kind of quiet the noise. This is a big game for both teams right now. It'll basically say who's the top dog in the NFC East right now. And in my opinion, you could really make an argument either way, because neither team is really playing good right now. And the Giants are kind of lurking in the shadows trying to make a move. The Eagles are hurt. Both teams are hurt, but we're going to start with the Eagles. The Eagles are hurt. Basically, their entire secondary is out. I know they got some guys that are starting to come back into practice. Their starting corners are coming back soon, but they probably won't play in this game. So the recipe for success for the Cowboys means throw the freaking football. Stop with all the first down runs. Don't do what Stephen Jones said he would do on the radio this week and feed Ezekiel Elliott 30 runs in this game. Don't do that. For the love of Christ, don't do that. If you do, you are going to lose the game. Just throw the football. Just go deep, go over their head. I know the Cowboys are banged up offensively, and we'll get to that in a second. But just do that. That is how you beat this Eagles team. That is how everybody has beaten this Eagles team so far this year. Just throw the football. It is not that complicated. And here's why you don't run Zeke a bunch in this game. Philadelphia has the number 2 rushing defense in the league. They're averaging giving up 72.8 rush yards per game. They were able to shut down that Green Bay run game that the Cowboys couldn't do. Just saying. This run defense is good. So what I'm saying is don't feed Zeke 30 times in this game and do a bunch of first down runs that sets up 2nd and long that eventually gets the 3rd and long. Don't do that. Because if you do that, you're going to have a bad time. And you know what? You know how I know that? Because the Cowboys have been doing that for the last 3 weeks, and they've lost 3 straight games. Go back to what you were doing the first 3 weeks. Go back to the play-action passes. Go back to the motions. Go back to all of that. The Cowboys were one of the most play-action heavy teams in the league the first 3 weeks. They're one of the least heavy play-action pass teams in the league these last 3 weeks. It's all changed dramatically these last 3 weeks for no reason. The Cowboys are hurt everywhere too. Amari Cooper is still dealing with his issues. If I remember correctly, it's like a foot issue. When this week started, it sounded like he wouldn't play in this game, but as we get closer and closer, he's saying he's going to try and play in this game, and it sounds like he's really going to give it a shot. It sounds like Randall Cobb's probably going to miss as well. So that's 2 wide receivers down. Your tackles, Lael Collins and Tyron Smith for the Cowboys. We don't know if they'll play. They were very limited at practice this week. And Byron Jones, one of your starting secondary members, he could potentially miss this game as well. So the Cowboys have injuries everywhere as well. So it's 2 banged up teams that really need a win. Oh, and to top that all off, both teams have had incredibly slow starts this season. The Eagles have been, a slow start team the entire season. The Cowboys have been a slow start team these last 3 weeks with their 3-game losing streak. So, who knows? Either one team maybe comes out and starts fast and bucks the trend, or they both come out and start super slow and it's like a 6-3 game at halftime, like America wants. Something's got to give in this game. Something has to give. And, come Monday morning, whoever loses this game is going to be getting a lot of grief from the media. Both teams really need this win. And if the Cowboys lose this game, it's going to be nucleic heat on Jason Garrett. And rightfully so. But I'm going to take the Eagles to win this one. Yeah. I know a lot of people are leaning toward the Cowboys, but they've just been so flat and just been so bad these last 3 weeks. I know the Cowboys have a tendency under Jason Garrett to, when they get their back against the wall, they tend to play just a tiny bit better than they normally do, but I think the Eagles take this one. I just have no faith in what Jason Garrett and this offense is doing right now. It's so bad. And their defense has been even worse. That hasn't been talked about enough for the Cowboys. Their defense has been horrendously bad. And they've returned most of their players from their defense last year that was really, really good. But it's been pretty bad. I'll take the Eagles in this one, but this game, I don't know. This game's giving me weird vibes. It's going to be a weird Sunday Night Football game, for sure. All right, moving on to our last prediction game, Monday Night Football. One more clunker, Patriots and Jets. The Jets' offensive stats are very ugly. If you look up any offensive stat involving them, they're bad. They're going to be better now that Sam Darnold's back. Their stats are going to improve. They're going to get better. They're going to look a lot better. They're going to be more watchable now that Sam Darnold's back and playing. And that's good for the Jets because they were just awful since Sam's been out. And more good news for the Jets. Linebacker C.J. Mosley is going to be, he's saying he's going to play in this game. We haven't seen him since week 1 when he left with a knee injury. So, big-time free agent, finally coming back to play for the Jets. And they're going to need him against a Patriots team that is basically a juggernaut at this point. The Patriots defense is like a freight train coming through. They're number 1 in total D with 234.7 yards per game. Number 2 in sacks with 25. And number 1 in turnovers with 16 on the year. Translation, they're a freight train and they're going to smack the holy hell out of you. It really doesn't matter what the Patriots offense does. I think the Jets defense showed, especially this last Sunday, that they can, keep games close and keep their team in the game when their offense isn't working. But I don't think it matters what the Patriots offense does in this game. I don't think it matters at all because this defense is just so dominant. It's going to come out and just strangle the life out of Sam Darnold and the Jets. I don't know an offense that can crack this code right now. I don't know how you beat this Patriots defense. They're going to rush you into oblivion with the pass rush, and then their corners are going to pick you off left and right. Oh, and then guess what? Their special teams can also score points on you because they'll block your punt and run it back for a touchdown. They've already done it like 3 or 4 times this season. I'll take the Pats to win. I think this is going to be a fairly one-sided affair. I don't say that as a slight on the Jets. They're going to be better now that Darnold's back, like I said, but the Patriots defense is just too good. They can't keep up. All right, that's it for the preview portion of the podcast. We just went through all the games, news, and recap of last night's game. So all the previews for Week 7 now officially done, so you can go enjoy your football weekend. But I want to make a special announcement right now. Super special announcement. I know, just to make sure people were listening. Forgot to tease it at the beginning, but we're saying it now. This coming Wednesday, October 23rd, we are doing a special show, special edition of the podcast. Because, we only do 2 a week. Well, next week we're doing 3. We're going to do a little special episode on that Wednesday about the trade deadline. We're going to talk to you about teams that should be trading for players, and if so, what players they should trade for, what players teams should be trying to trade away, and players that could be on the move. We're going to talk about all 3 of those things. We're going to talk about certain teams that should or shouldn't be trading, all that sort of stuff. It won't be a super long episode. This is like an hour and 10 minutes. That the one on Wednesday is probably going to be like maybe 30 to 50 minutes, somewhere in that range. It won't be super long. It'll be short. It'll be fun. Come in, kick your feet up, have a fun time. We'll make jokes. We'll laugh at teams. It'll be fun. So keep an eye out for that. Like normal, we'll do 2 shows, Tuesday and Friday next week. And then, Wednesday, we'll have the new episode, new fun trade show up. Don't know what we're going to call it yet, but we'll workshop it. So keep an eye out for that. So next time we talk, it'll be Tuesday, where we'll recap all of the games we just previewed and preview Thursday Night Football for next week. All right, thanks for coming by and dropping by, and have a good weekend. Bye.